fantastic signal to be able to share out with the world and to be able to share with my colleagues at Google News Initiative so that they know there's a lot of interest for these kinds of trainings and supports programs and so forth. And yeah, what we're going to do today, just to give you a quick kind of agenda or overview, is I'll just really quickly introduce Robbie from Google. I won't talk at length about me. You can read lots about me wherever you can find me on the internet. And I'm mostly just going to run you through what this program is and isn't in about 10 minutes. And then we'll just open it up to Q&A, and we'll try and keep the Q&A kind of running as long as we can. If at a certain point we run out of questions, what I'll do is I'll walk you through some case studies of former grads of the program so you can hear about what it might be like for you in 2 years should you come into this program. But yeah, basically we're going to keep it informal. I'll keep kind of my prepared remarks about what the program is to about 10 minutes, and then we'll just switch to your questions and just take them live. And you can either type them into that link that I shared in the chat, or you can just unmute and ask your question. Or if you see your question come up, feel free to unmute and clarify if I don't totally get it. So yeah, I think with that, we'll dive in. First and foremost, so I'm Philip Smith. I run the pre-launch lab for Google News Initiative. Been doing that for several years now, and I couldn't do it without the support of Google News Initiative and my colleague, Robbie Brown, who's here on the call with us today. So I'll just ask Robbie to give a quick intro and maybe mention why Google is interested in programs like this, and then yeah, we'll go from there.
Yeah, happy to. And I got to say, joining a call that has 117 and counting people on it is really validating. So we appreciate all of you being here. So I'm on the news team at Google. We build products for journalists and for news organizations, and we run programs like the Startups program that we're talking through today. I used to be a journalist in a past life, so I'm extra excited to be getting to chat with all of you. I will say Philip is the sort of face of the program. The coaches you see here are the ones who can best explain kind of details about the process. But if you have questions about kind of Google's work in news, how Google products can be helpful, I'm going to drop my email into the chat too. There is no, I want to sort of dispel one misconception that comes up sometimes, like there's no sales effort here. We're not trying to get you to use Google products. If they're useful, we're always happy if you do, and I can walk you through some of those products once we get to the lab itself. But there's certainly no requirement as part of this process that you use anything that Google makes. So yeah, so I will drop my email in if you have individual questions for me. Send them my way. But if you have questions about kind of the application process of the lab, this is probably the right forum for this.
Great. Thanks so much, Robbie. Yeah, and as mentioned, so my name is Philip Smith. I launched this version of this pre-launch lab back in 2018 after a one-year fellowship at Stanford University, where I basically studied everything I could about entrepreneurship from kind of the luminaries of the field, and tried to figure out how to translate what I learned there into something that worked for either former journalists or people who are leaving newsrooms wanting to start their own initiative. And basically, after a decade of working in a startup newsroom myself, I kept asking myself the question, how can I help other people do this? It's got to be part of the future of news, where people like you are starting small news efforts that will grow into the news ecosystem that we have in 5 or 10 years from now. And that was the question that I took to Stanford, and that was the outcome of that fellowship is this program, which has been running now since around 2019. With the support of Google News Initiative, which is just fantastic. But I want to quickly give you a vision of, or kind of show you, as opposed to telling you what the program is about, simply by walking through some of the past cohorts of the program. So I'll just do that quickly now. So there actually was a pilot program in 2019, which had just 5 people in it. And the first official cohort that ran at the size that we run it at now happened in 2020. And this was this was the first group we tried. It was a group of both Canadians and Americans, and we ran it with 24 people, and it was a huge success by every measurement that we could figure out. And so, we've done it again since then. We ran it in 2021, focused on just the United States, because we recognize that the context, the media ecosystems in both the United States and Canada are quite unique. And so we wanted to make sure that we were able to provide like really specific support to each cohort. So we split the cohorts up, did a US only cohort where we really refined some of our modules for folks in the US. And then in 2022, we circled back and did a cohort of just Canadians. So we were able to refine information around, how to start a business in Canada, the nonprofit kind of steps to set up a nonprofit in Canada, programs like the Registered Journalism Organization, and so on were just coming into play. So we wanted to make sure that we had modules on that. And then we just ran a cohort in 2023, which was back to a combined US and Canada cohort. And we had 25 participants. And since that, we've also run the program in Australia, New Zealand, South America, and Kenya is just finishing off actually in the next couple of weeks. And Argentina will also launch this year. So, the question that I want to, pose a rhetorical question here. So why did all of these people invest several weeks of their life into a program like this? And what sets this program apart from any other program that you might consider? So I'll just walk you through that quickly. Number one, I should say, first and foremost, there's no magic dust involved here. The success of this program and why it works just comes down to three very simple things. Number one is a cohort that you undertake the program with. So as noted, there's been cohorts of up to 25 people. And those cohorts, I can tell you, going all the way back to the 2020 cohort, have stayed together. They stayed together as kind of a support group, a mastermind, an accountability group, and a posse that moves forward together and supports each other for years after the program ends. So number one, the benefit, number one ingredient and biggest benefit is the cohort that you take the program with. Number two is the coaching that you receive. So I could have touched on, or we showed you pictures of some of the coaches that have been involved in the past. Unlike a lot of other programs, we have a small number of coaches and you meet with them every single week. So you get one-on-one coaching time with the coaches every single week. And the opportunity or the idea there is to ensure that you are moving forward tangibly every week. We don't load you down with homework and expect you to just kind of get through it and fight through it on your own. We give you coaching to help ensure that you're not blocked from moving forward with your idea in tangible ways every single week. And last but not least is the curriculum, which I do believe is excellent, but it's also very minimalist. We're not giving you piles of readings. We're not giving you tons of stuff to watch. It's really what we think is the minimum effective dose of curriculum that helps keep you focused on just one step each week towards moving your idea to a moment of launch or being publicly visible, or if you're launched, helping you to accelerate towards financial sustainability. That's really what we're trying to do in this program and what we think sets it apart from other programs. Not to say we don't have any, all the other programs in the ecosystem are excellent in their own ways. Ours is designed to be lightweight, light touch, and really focused on this idea of building a cohort around you and giving you hands-on coaching to move you towards a launch moment if you're not launched. We do bring in excellent coaches, and we're just starting to finalize who those coaches will be for this year. We do know that Graham Watson-Ringo, who I showed a photo of earlier, is going to be our lead coach on the left. Graham works for the News Revenue Hub and is a former journalist for the San Antonio paper, of which I'm forgetting the name of. Amazing, and we'll have two other coaches along with Graham as well. So what the lab is well positioned to support. Let's just jump into that and make it really clear. So number one, this program specifically is for people who are based in the United States or Canada. So if you're joining from outside of one of those countries, good news is there's other programs running in other parts of the world, as I mentioned, and hopefully there will continue to be so. But this specific program is for folks who are based in the United States or Canada. So if that's not you, I apologize, but just want to set that expectation right up front. Number two, this is for efforts that are editorially driven. And what that means is for people that are focused on producing information or content or reporting. So either you've got the skills to do that yourself or you have the relationships in place to do that. So these are editorial products, meaning they're not necessarily tech products. And I'll get to that in 1 second. Very much the case this year is going to be a focus on civic information or news. So this is news for communities, for towns, cities, states, regions, or kind of content or information that's civically important, criminal justice, the environment, education, and so on. And I'll take all your questions on that, what will fit in and what won't. And last but not least, for digital, this is for digital efforts. As much as we love all the other platforms and mediums that news and information gets out to the world, where we have expertise is really in the digital medium. So helping you to figure out newsletters, podcasts, video, SMS, all of these things that we think of now as like the modern or contemporary way that people are getting information. That's where this program really excels. So yeah, that's what we're well positioned to support. And just to contrast that, what we feel like there's better programs out there to support around are efforts that are technology first. So if you're building a tech tool for a newsroom, you're building an analytics tool, you're building an AI tool. The output of what you're doing is not content or information, like original content or information. There's other programs that would be a better fit. I mentioned one here, Google for Startups, and there's lots of others, and we can talk about that in the Q&A. This time, or this cohort specifically, we're really going to stay focused on civic news and information because we feel that that's our superpower and our strength as a team. So as much as we like sports and other areas of coverage, that's kind of not our sweet spot. Infotainment, lifestyle, beauty, fashion are areas where we just have less expertise as a coaching team, and so we don't feel they fit as well into a strong cohort. And last but not least, one thing that we found is like small teams are the size that we're able to support with the one-on-one coaching model. So if you're in a larger newsroom, you might be better off in one of the other programs that Google offers. So there's post-launch programs and advertising revenue programs and so on and so forth. This effort is really for people who are either not launched yet or launched, let's say, less than a year old and have a team of maybe 1 or 2 or maximum 3 people. That's kind of what we're well positioned to support. One final detail, and then I'll just walk you through the curriculum and the timeline for applying, and then we'll get into your Q&As. And this is a really important detail, just to make sure that there's no misunderstandings here. So there's no funding included in this program. The program itself is no cost. The only cost to you is your time, the investment of your time and attention and energy. And obviously there is a cost to run the program, and that is a cost that Google News Initiative is generously covering. But there is no additional funding that's guaranteed as part of this program. So somebody want to be really clear on that. Graduating this program doesn't come with a grant of any kind. It doesn't come with a loan. It doesn't come with a financial injection, and it doesn't come with any kind of special privileges. You are a graduate of the GNI program, which people do parlay into other, getting into other things. It's a great badge of honor to, be in this program, to be in the cohort, and to graduate. You become part of a fellowship network that we have. However, there's no secret magical dust that is sprinkled on you, either financially or in terms of like getting higher rankings in Google. So I just want to be really clear about that. Okay, so to summarize, what is this program a great fit for? We think this is an excellent fit for first-time or early-stage entrepreneurs. So that could be you've been in a newsroom your whole career, but you've been thinking lately about stepping out and starting your own newsletter or podcast or YouTube channel or website or local news digital site. Perfect. It could be, it can be just an idea at this point. For example, perhaps you, like many journalists, unfortunately, in the current moment, see the writing on the wall in your traditional newsroom that there's either going to be a downsizing or layoffs or worse yet, a closure. And you're thinking, gosh, I really feel like this is the time to go out on my own, but I don't have a fully formed idea yet. Perfect. We love that. We can help you refine the idea. We can help you get that idea into a clear plan for hitting financial sustainability within a short period of time. We can work with that. Efforts, we often say, that are less than a year old, simply because we want the efforts to be coachable. And what we found is that once an effort is beyond a year or so in age, people become really emotionally attached and invested in the idea in a way that makes it really hard to coach around. So we want to make sure that you're open to coaching and that the idea is young enough that it can change and evolve and become as compelling as possible as a product in the news ecosystem. And last but not least, it shouldn't be a side hustle. So this should be something where you're really thinking about it as becoming a main hustle. So you want to build a viable, sustainable business around this, something that has revenue that can potentially replace your current salary or form a salary and potentially enough to start hiring staff and to grow. So that's what we really believe this is a great fit for. You can read obviously the other side, which is where we don't think it's a great fit. And I'll just summarize by saying we want to invite people to participate in this program simply because we believe that they'll be able to contribute to the program as much as they're able to take from it. So when we invite people into the program, it's partly because we see that that person is going to be a great contributor to the cohort, that they have as much to give to the program as to learn. Number two, we really want to invite people in who we think are going to be active cohort members, who are going to be excited about collaborating with other people in the cohort and learning together. And we want to support people that believe they're in a position to make great use of this opportunity. Now, while it doesn't come with a big bag of money at the end, what it does come with is a huge opportunity to accelerate your idea, towards a financial viability moment when potentially you are making this your main thing and building a small media empire, that's exactly who we want to invite into this program. And we're attempting to give a shot to people who might not get this level of support anywhere else. Last at the end of the day. Okay, I'll just finalize by saying here's the schedule week by week. Basically, we start off with goal setting. We very quickly get into pushing you to talk to customers. So that is, we push you to get outside the building, which is often hard for journalists, oddly, and to interview people about what their information habits are and what information might be lacking in their life and how you might meet that need. We really work with you to figure out what's going to be the right business model for your effort, whether that's nonprofit or for-profit or something else. And we push you to start practicing a very challenging skill for people who are in the journalism world, which is sales. Because being able to ask for the sale and being able to put a price on things is critical to succeeding as a business. And so more than anything, this program is kind of a, it's a business 101 for people who are interested in producing information or news. And what we try and do here is just help you reduce the risk that there is in starting a business. That's what, that's what this is about at the end of the day. Okay, and after this, obviously it's time to focus on getting your effort launched. We encourage you to make something that's publicly visible by the end of this, to pitch it, to make, to have kind of a launch of some kind, and we'll work with you to do that throughout the period of the program. So time requirements. We say that roughly 8 hours a week is what's needed to succeed in this program. Obviously, if you have more time to commit, that's even better. So we've had people do this who have a full-time job, and they're doing it around the sides of that full-time job. And what they do is they find, an hour in the morning, Monday to Friday, and a few hours on the weekend, and they can complete this. For other folks who've left their job or been laid off, and they can commit, 25, 35, 40 hours to this, even better. This program scales according to the time that you have available, so up or down. And in terms of how you graduate, it's not really complicated. Basically, you have to just attend the weekly session or watch it if you can't attend live, which we totally understand. For some people, it's not going to be possible just due to time zone challenges. Complete basically 4 coaching sessions out of the course of roughly an 8-week period. Submit basically a weekly status update, demonstrate effort at completing the assignments, and show up for the final video pitch event, which we'll give you the date of right at the beginning of the program. So that's all that you need to graduate. And upon graduation, you join more than 100 people who've graduated before you. You become part of this fellowship network and part of this larger movement around journalism entrepreneurship. All right, here's the timeline, and we're ready to get into Q&A. So deadline for applications is May 31st. They only opened last week, so it's still early days. We'll be doing some interviews in the early weeks of June. So if we see an application and we have questions, we'll reach out to you and do a one-on-one interview. People will receive their invitation to participate in the 3rd week of June. So that'll give you a few weeks before the actual lab begins, which will be July 8th. And we'll try and finish up by the end of August. That's the timeline. Okay, I've gone lightning fast today in the interest of getting to questions because there are so many people on the call. So let's just hop right into Q&A. And what we'll do is I'll take maybe 10 minutes of questions. We'll go to maybe 40 minutes past the hour. And then I'll share a couple of case studies of former grads with you. And then we'll pop back into questions and try and finish them off. So with that, let me just share the Q&A link again. So I'll share it in here. Say, please post your questions here. And I'll leave it to Robbie if you can keep an eye on the chat and maybe just flag if there's any that we missed there. Okay. And let me just get onto the actual page here so I can look at it. All right, and if this is your question and I don't get the the essence of it, please just unmute and clarify for me, because I want to make sure that we we answer as many questions as we can today. Okay, so the application asks if you are somewhere, but I'm applying for my personal digital media site. Yeah, there are some questions on the application that don't apply to everybody, and frankly, in some cases, don't totally make sense. I would just, for that specific question, I would add like NA, like not applicable, or like doesn't apply, or just don't fill in that question. If it's a required question, just put NA or doesn't apply. So yeah, if you're just applying for your own personal site, and that question doesn't apply, just ignore it, or enter something in there that indicates that you're skipping it. That's fine. Okay, so let me just see here. I'm going to go with the questions that are at the top. There's no such thing as a former journalist with a link. I don't know if that doesn't seem like a question, so I'm just going to.
I think that was a reference to me saying I was a former journalist, Phil.
Okay,
somebody's not letting me out.
That's true. I agree. And one thing I didn't say at the get-go that I should say is that this program is not just for journalists, and you'll hear more about that when I introduce a case study from one of our grads. I don't want to imply or over-imply that to be part of this program, one needs to come from a big J journalism school or journalism job background. We have had many people in the program who are not professional journalists who have succeeded or been successful. As long as you have a passion for getting information to people who need it, in a scenario in which that information is not being provided, and you're the person in the place to do that, and you have a commitment to learning how to produce information that is trustworthy and verified, you're a fit. I mean, if you've got the passion and moxie and grit to get into a program and to try and solve that kind of a challenge, we'll support you. It's not a journalism program. We don't teach journalism, but we definitely have resources for people who are coming to it from a different background and can provide you with strategies to be successful. How does religious content fit into the program? That's an interesting question. I mean, it really depends on what the content is. For example, there's a publication that I'll be helping this year called Barn Raiser or Barn Raising Media. I believe they are, for all intents and purposes, under the larger umbrella of a Christian organization, but they produce news and information. They do investigations. So I would say, I don't know without more information. If you want to clarify, feel free to unmute and clarify on what that is. But I would say it really depends on what the content or information is. It's not, we're not going to disqualify somebody simply because there's religious affiliation. Hopefully I've answered that one okay. Would data visualization and animation be a good fit for this program? Again, it really depends on what the content is. I mean, we consider those kind of like delivery mediums or like information mediums, as opposed to what is the editorial lens. But yeah, for example, in the program in Australia, there was a participant that was doing kind of a daily news summary on YouTube, but the anchor, the news anchor of the show, was an animated dog, and it was a great fit because they were using something that was attention getting and different to find new people that were interested in getting news or information, and it caught their attention, and it was a fun way to deliver that information. So I'd say it really depends on what the editorial is, but certainly data visualization and animation have been part of efforts that have been in the program in the past. How many people per team can join? We've had teams of 3. We've had teams of 3 in the past. We find the smaller the better, simply because there's often kind of time loss due to logistical overhead of communicating between team members. So small teams that can communicate quickly and easily, great fit. They can all join. They can join the coaching sessions, or they can trade off coaching sessions between them. But kind of above 3 gets a little tricky because sometimes the communication cycle is long, and this is a short program. So we need people to be able to kind of move very quickly. So hopefully that answers that question. I am not employed by Google. Thank you for that question. I have my own LLC, and my LLC or company is a vendor to Google. So hopefully that answers that question. Can you connect us to the other Google programs you mentioned? Yeah, Robbie can drop a link.
Yeah, let me come off. I'll just come off mute to say I'm going to put a link to a page on our website that summarizes other labs beyond this one. This is the only lab at the moment that's kind of actively taking applications, but there will be others like this that open up soon, so you can take a look at them. And if you have any questions, I'll drop my email into the chat, but I can do that again.
Yeah. Great. And I'll just say, I just looked over because I noticed there's some people actually on the live stream as well. If you're on the live stream and getting this, feel free to hop over into the Google Meet where you can interact directly. I sent out an email, yesterday and earlier today with the link to the Google Meet directly. So if you're on the live stream and want to hop in and ask a question live, please do that. Okay, do you have any success stories to share from the past? Absolutely. So I'll hop over to some success stories after we answer a few more questions and walk you through some of those. I think we did that one. Where do I go to apply? I'll let Robbie drop the link to the application into the chat as well. I think I included it in the email I sent yesterday. So, but if not, we will also send a follow-up email today with a link to apply. Sports-related projects are pretty hard no. I mean, I'll give you one, example of where there was an exception to that. Let me just see if I can. I probably have to share a different tab, but let me just see. Yeah, I can hang on one sec here. Okay, so one exception to that was this project by Bria Felician. Yes, I'm sharing it now, called The Black Sportswomen. And basically, what Bria was doing was telling untold stories from, sports people of the past. And that we felt was a fit because it was simply not being covered and had a civic kind of information component to it, a historical component. So I'd say there are scenarios in which sports is not a hard no. But if you are pitching, weekly coverage of the local sports team or, anything like The Athletic, that's professional sports, kind of contemporary, current, daily, weekly professional sports coverage, we just don't feel that's kind of our strength, nor the ambition of this program. There's probably other, because it's kind of a more commercially viable journalistic beat on its own. So there's probably other programs that are, going to be equally good. We really want to make sure that this program provides an opportunity for editorial beats that are harder to make financially viable. That's kind of our sweet spot and our ambition, our passion as well. So hopefully that answers that question. I'll just go back to the questions here. And if you have kind of a follow-up on that, feel free to unmute and ask. That's fine. Do you ask applicants to identify their audience and how they plan to monetize, or does that come from the program? Both. I mean, I think there are some questions in the application that kind of say, do you have any early ideas on how you might, monetize or how you might underwrite or finance the project? But we certainly encourage people who are just at the idea stage to apply, and that is a huge component of the program, is walking you through what the different opportunities are and which we believe are the strongest opportunities to go after first in terms of monetization. So I'd say the answer to that is both. We do ask, I think, a question on the application about that. However, we don't expect applicants to have that completely figured out by any means. Is there any ongoing Google support post-program? That's great. A great question. So there actually is, there's not, as I mentioned, no financial support, but there is a year of quarterly coaching after the program. So upon successfully graduating the program, you are entitled to a completely optional but encouraged quarterly coaching session where we check in and just make sure that you're on track towards the goals that you set during the program. We try and work through any challenges that you have. And yeah, so there is ongoing support for a year after the program. And as I mentioned, you will, after the program, be in a, we use Slack as, I don't know if everybody's familiar with that, but Slack is like a, real-time chat messaging application. And we use that during the program, but also after the program, you enter a large channel with all the prior grads, which are about 100 now. And so there's also support in the sense of having access to that kind of hive mind or group of expertise going forward. Can you drill down on topics a bit more? Would labor reporting be appropriate? How about sensory science and wellness? These are, this is a great question. These are great questions. Absolutely. So I'll just, I'll switch to another tab here. One of the grads from our most recent cohort is Aria, and Aria covers basically a labor beat. So absolutely. Labor reporting is a great fit. The other one you mentioned, sensory science and wellness. We also had a grad that just launched what's called Nucleus magazine. I'm not sure how to find it, but I'll share a link in the follow-up email to Nucleus. But yeah, so I'd say science, yes. I'm not sure what sensory science is, but science, yes. Wellness, probably not. Unless there was a really unique take on wellness that had some kind of more of a civic nature, then we probably would say no to wellness. But labor reporting, 100%, science, 100%, and the others kind of, and so I'd say reach out with those questions, and I'll talk about that in a second. Oops, I don't know if I accidentally deleted a question there that was just jumped up to the top. So apologies if you saw a question disappear, feel free to resubmit that one because I think I accidentally marked one answered. What is the program participant section of the application? Yes. So basically, if you are a team, like if there's more than just you, that would be the box on the application form where you would enter the names of the other people that are part of your effort or project. So if it's just you, you can leave it blank. But if it's you and a colleague, you would put their name in there as well. Will these slides be shared? Yep, 100%. We're recording this and we'll share the slides right after this session as soon as it's ready, either later today or tomorrow morning. Yep. So let me do one or two more questions and then we'll do some case studies. We're interested in local news through the lens of women of color. Are there data mining tools that Google offers that will work with in the program? Not currently data mining tools. As Robbie mentioned, it's not like a Google Tools program. We don't really focus on any. It's really about business. How do you build a viable news or information enterprise, whether that be a for-profit or nonprofit? That's really what we're focused on. Less the tools and the mediums, and more about how do you think of it as a business? How do you build a business around it? How do you de-risk the business early on so that you have a chance of reaching financial viability within a short enough period of time that you can survive? And so we don't do any deep dives on tools. That said, Google has produced a ton of educational resources on the tools that they provide. And I'm sure that...
yeah, can I plug one quickly?
Yeah.
So it's an interesting question, and like you said, I think this may be the wrong program for it, but I'll just point you to one thing, which is Google Analytics obviously is like an analytics software that helps you understand what's happening on your website, which articles somebody's reading, where they came from, but it's not necessarily built with news organizations in mind. And so we have taken it and kind of built a layer on top, which we call News Consumer Insights. And I'll just drop a little link to it, but it's basically like, if you're at a place where you've launched a website and you're trying to learn a little bit more about your audience and kind of how they engage with your news coverage, it might be a helpful place to look.
Cool. So I'm going to hold it there for 1 second, just mention two things, especially for those folks that are on the call and still have questions or recognize that, in 15 minutes, we might not get through. We'll get through most of these, and I'll commit to answering ones that we don't get to live and send out an email with those answers. And the other opportunity for all of you, which I'll mention again at the end of this, but I want to mention it now in case somebody drops off before that, is that I'm going to open up, or I have been opening up office hours for people who are interested in the program, who have specific questions that they want to get into. So for example, the person who asked the question about religious content, or person who asked the question about sensory science, or what have you. If you want to pre-flight or kind of run your application idea by me in advance, I encourage that, and I will send out a link to book into my Calendly. It's like you can just book right into my calendar to anybody who's RSVP'd for this. What I will say is, there are now at this point 400 people who've expressed interest in the program, and it would not be possible for me to meet with everybody for 15 minutes and still kind of do everything else that I need to do. So there are a limited number of spots. I've opened up as many as I can in April. It's probably like 25 or 30 spots. So if you want to talk your application through beforehand for 15 minutes, please hop on that link when you see it. It'll go out probably later today or tomorrow morning, and book in. And I will also open more times in May. So don't be too worried if you miss out on an April spot. There'll be more times in May, and I'll have more time in May to do that. But yeah, so there's an opportunity to kind of like get specific and ask your, really nuanced questions one-on-one if you feel that would be helpful. It's not like I'm not going to be the person who decides on who's invited in solely, so it's not kind of going to give you a leg up necessarily in terms of your application. So I would only take advantage of that if you really want to make sure, like, will I be eligible? Will this idea be a fit before applying? Then definitely take advantage of that. Okay, so I'll just answer one more question, then we'll do some case studies and for 5 minutes, and then we'll circle back to another 10 minutes of questions because it looks like we have a lot. So would a serious but sarcastic news program like 22 Minutes be a viable goal, or are you looking for people to make serious programming? As noted, we had a animated dog doing a daily news readout, and that was totally eligible, and we thought it was a great idea. So no, news that is able to break through the kind of people's limited attention spans, absolutely, that would be a great fit as long as you want to make it, as long as there's serious news underlying that, and you're seriously committed to the idea. Yeah, that'd be a great fit. So let me just pop over to a couple of case studies that people have asked about that, and then we'll pop back to questions. So let's go here. Okay, excuse me for one sec. So these are, really heartwarming stories for me to always go over. I was on a coaching call this morning, and I was hoping to share part of that coaching call with all of you, but I couldn't get it ready quite in time. But unprompted, so this is a quarterly coaching call for somebody who just graduated in 2023, and the graduate said, like, I would not have. They're already seeing success. They launched their podcast in January. They're getting lots of new opportunities are opening up because they launched their podcast. They're being invited to speak at universities. They have colleges reaching out, asking this graduate to help them with their podcast, and like this is all starting to happen. And it's 3 months after they left the program or after they graduated the program, and this graduate literally said, like, it wouldn't have happened without the program. Yes, I was thinking about it for years. Yes, I was kind of like noodling or, messing with the idea on the sides, but this program kicked my butt into launching. And the act of launching set in motion all of these other dominoes that are now opportunities for them to start making a viable, real career, real, media company out of this. And they've hired a part-time editor to edit the podcast for them. And so this is moving like just within 3 months. But here are some other good examples. So Travers Johnson was in the very first cohort in 2020. Basically, he relaunched his product, Queerency, which is basically a editorial product about the LGBTQ plus economy. So about economic issues that impact that community. And he relaunched it during the lab in 2020. At that time, Queerency was simply a newsletter. Travers had less than 1,000 subscribers on the newsletter, and it was an Instagram, an Instagram channel or whatever you want to call that, which had less than 1,000 people following it. He iterated through the program, relaunched Queerency, and started experimenting with TikTok, which was just starting to kind of pick up at that point in time. And Queerency now reaches more than 100,000 people on TikTok and has succeeded in amassing, 2-3 million views on their videos that they publish every week. More importantly, has secured several 5-figure sponsorships from the likes of Zillow, the real estate company, and others, and built a real media company around this. So he's hired staff, he's hired kind of an editor, he's hired editors that help with the video content. So I love this story simply because it's, there's so many great elements about this. It's covering news and information that wasn't being covered before. It's doing it in a new and unique way, a way that is kind of perhaps more contemporary and reaching younger readers and watchers. But there's a business behind this. It's just, he's not an influencer as much as somebody who's delivering real news and information on these platforms. So I love that one. The next one I feel is really important to get out there. I mentioned that not all people in this program come from a journalism background. So Annalise Pierce was also in that first cohort in 2020 and launched this effort, Shasta Scout, at the end of the program. So Annalise is working in a very conservative part of California, very northern edge of California, and it is a conservative part of the state, one that is kind of rich with militia, Proud Boys, and a mega church that has a stranglehold on everything. And Annalise is actually a former disciple of the megachurch who got disillusioned and decided that somebody needed to start telling the stories of what challenges the megachurch were bringing onto the part of the state. So Annalise, no journalism background in terms of a journalism degree, but she has a mentor, and launched this at the end of the lab with zero money in the bank. Fast forward 12 months, and Annalise reported that she had $50,000 in the bank from fundraising that she had done. She had numerous stories picked up by the LA Times and other national outlets, and she has broken many stories, grown her team, hired people, and got approved for a nonprofit status, the 501c3 in the US, all within 2 years. So this is a media organization. It was born at the end of this program by somebody without a traditional journalism background that is just, breaking barriers, winning awards, and doing incredibly important reporting. This is this is exactly the kind of effort that we love to support. More recent grads, so Annie graduated in 2023, so just in December. And Annie is producing was daily. We've encouraged him to go a little slower, 2 or 3 times a week, 10 to 15 minute news briefing that's in Spanish. So it's specifically aimed at keeping the growing Hispanic population in the US informed about the issues that are affecting their lives. As you can see, Annie has, I think now at this point, more than 40,000 subscribers. Some of his videos now after the program that he's really refined what he's reporting on are reaching 20, 30,000, 100,000 views per video. And he's at the point where he's able to start thinking about monetization for this. How does he turn this into a real media company? So it's super exciting. Let me just do one more, and then I'm trying to think of which one of all these would be great. Well, maybe let me go back to Megan and Sioux Falls Simplified. So we'll go to somebody who was a former journalist. So at the time that Megan joined the program, again, 2020 actually, Megan was a daily news beat reporter at the Sioux Falls daily paper, the Daily Leader, I think it was called. And so when Megan was in this program, she was in stealth mode. She didn't want her employer to know that she was in the program. So we didn't announce that she was in the program, which is totally an option for you if you're invited in and choose to join the program. And during the course of developing her idea in the program, she received an offer that was kind of offered to many people in the chain. I think the paper she was in was either a Gannett or a McClatchy paper. And the chain started offering these early kind of these buyouts. So if you want to take a buyout from the paper, you could have that opportunity. Now, Megan was a very youthful reporter early in her career there, and stunned her editor by taking the buyout because she was so confident that her idea, Sioux Falls Simplified, would work. So she took the buyout, she left the daily paper, she officially launched Sioux Falls Simplified at the end of the program, and very quickly innovated on revenue models that had not been done before, and has grown this Sioux Falls Simplified into a business that has replaced her income at the daily paper and become her own business. So yeah, those are just 3 examples. There are tons and tons more. I'll share links with you after this to all of the prior grads so you can read about them and just find out on your own. Again, I don't want to oversell it. I'm happy for you to go and do your due diligence, do your research, read up on people who've graduated the program before you, and see where they are and whether you think this is a fit. Okay, so let's just pop back to questions at this point. We've got about 8 minutes left. I want to make sure we get through as many questions as possible. And again, if you feel, if you want to unmute and ask your questions directly, feel free to do that.
And Philip, just for you to know, there are also a few questions in the Google Meet. So if we get done with the questions in Slido, we can scoot over there. But if not, people can come to your office hours.
Cool. So I'm going to go fast here just because I want to make sure I'm going to, respect all of your times. There's still 100 people here, which is incredible. Again, thank you for being here and for your interest in the program. I'm just going to lightning around these questions and, hopefully we'll get through as many as we can. Executive sponsor, I don't know. I would say if it doesn't apply, if it's in the application, that's surprising to me, and it doesn't apply.
I just did a keyword search. I didn't see it anywhere in the application, and I didn't see it on our website. So apologies if it is somewhere that I didn't look, but maybe drop that into the chat.
Yeah. Motivation behind the program. As mentioned, I came from a new startup in Vancouver, Canada. I saw what they did there from being kind of ignored by the mainstream media and called a blog, and years later winning every award possible in Canada and doing really important, impactful reporting that changed people's lives for the best. That's the motivation. I just want to see more of that. I want to see more people starting newsrooms that they care about, that do important work. That's it. And I think for Google, it's the same. Would it be left to us to explain if our work is civic in character? I'm interested in culture writing, but with a social good angle. I wonder if it would be a good fit. For you, whoever asked that question, I would say book in for an office hours and tell me more about your idea. As you say, civic is kind of it's a judgment call. So I'd say that one, I need more information. So I'd book in for an office hours and ask, or give me more information. Does the program facilitate sharing pitches with potential funders? Yes. The pitch event, we invite many funders and they come and they love it. I can't tell you that they write checks at that event, but at least you are introduced to them and they know about your idea, so you can follow up. And we do, we post about your projects if you let us, so then that does help to socialize your idea. This is a tough one. So the person who asked about the podcast for 5 years, I'd say, again, book in for an office hours with me. Just, tell me more about what you're working on. What we often find is if somebody's been working on an idea for many years and it's not accelerating, is that there's something fundamentally that's not a fit between the idea and an audience. However, often that person, the journalist or whomever, is really committed to the idea, which is fine. Some things just need to be hobbies rather than businesses. So I don't know. Typically, we say less than 1 year is a good fit. Probably 5 is an outlier, but I would say book in for office hours and tell me more. It's not to say that there's, people are immediately uncoachable if they're beyond a year. However, I will say the folks that I coach, if they've been at something for several years and it's not working, are often very emotionally invested in their idea and find it hard to hear tough feedback. So yeah, and I want to give feedback to people who are open to the feedback and not have to, wrestle people to the ground, so to speak. We've been a volunteer-only effort for 1.5 years. Now we're transitioning. 100%. We've definitely had that. We literally had that in the last cohort. And you can look up or Google this organization called Winchester News. Volunteer-only effort in a smaller community. And now it's not only is it converting, but it's like hugely successful in terms of their fundraising efforts and their hiring staff. And yeah, 100% fiscally sponsored project, nonprofit, A-OK. Apply. Love that. For those
just really quickly, because it came up, somebody asked about signing up for office hours and how to do that. You'll send an email to everyone who came today. And
yeah, let me also, the link is here. I'll just drop it because people are asking. Let me drop it into the slides right now. 1 sec. Yeah. So if you have to drop off and you don't want to wait for that email, I'll pop it in the chat right now. Yeah, so as mentioned, there's not a lot of time available in April. There's like 25 slots on those 3 days that you see kind of highlighted there. I will open more hours in May. I just happen to be away a couple of weeks in April, so it's tough to fit in a lot, but we'll do as many as we can. So let me go back to the questions. Okay. For those interested in starting a newsletter, can you explain how this cohort differs from starting a Substack? What else might we learn? Well, I mean, you can start many grads. I pointed out to Labor Pains earlier, is on Substack. I mean, we're technology agnostic. Doesn't matter to me whether you started on Substack or Ghost or MailChimp or Beehive or whatever. Starting a turning on the tools of a newsletter is not starting a business. So what we try and teach you is how to actually build a business around a newsletter and how to make it financially viable. So you start a Substack, you have nobody paying for that news. If you do the math and try and figure out how many people need to pay you $5 a month to actually build a salary around, you'll be shocked. I mean, it's thousands of people. So yeah, if you're interested in starting a newsletter that you can turn into a business, that's what you'll learn. But we don't promote any one tool over another. You can use whatever platform you want. I don't know what this one is. I'm just going to mark that done. Would a topic around reproductive justice be approved? We've had reproductive, related participants in the past, so I don't know if it would be approved, but it would definitely be eligible. So I would say, yeah. And if you have more nuance, book in for an office hours and tell me more about the idea. Again, I don't know what these links are. My idea, although a long-term business plan might be part of a dissertation agenda, would that be okay for this program? I don't know, maybe. I would say that's another good one to book in for an office hours and give me more information. I guess the question for us is, are you going to turn it into, do you have the ambition to turn it into a viable, business of some kind that either supports you or more than you, or is it just an academic exercise? So I'd say book in, if you want to tell me more, book in for an office hours. Matimo Analytics is a privacy-focused alternative to Google Analytics. Great. Thanks for sharing that. Launched 2.5 years ago, mission-driven, peace and democracy, volunteer-run. Maybe, yes. Launched 2.5 years ago, mission-driven, volunteer-run journalism outlet, need to professionalize, pay writers. So 2.5 obviously is a little outside our sweet spot, but I would say tell me more, book in for an office hours and see. Likely you would be eligible. Yeah. Wondering how you feel to choose the applicants, especially since most applicants are coming with little experience. It's really based, that's a great question. And I think we'll finish on that question. There's still a lot of questions left. So I will commit to, I'll put these in a Google Doc. I'll answer them in a Google Doc and I'll circulate it via email as soon as I can. That might take a couple of days, but I'll get that out at some point, just so that all the questions are answered. I really appreciate the questions, but just in the interest of ensuring that people who have to leave can leave, I'll answer this last question and then we'll just kind of sign off. So basically, how we do that is once all the applications are in, we do a quick pass on the applications to say like, is the applicant eligible? Are they based in the US or Canada? Is the idea, within our kind of broad umbrella of civic news or information? Does it seem like they understand what program they're applying to? You'd be surprised. Half the applications typically don't really understand what they're applying for. So we eliminate the folks that are clearly like, it's not a good fit. From there, we have a review team that goes through each one and tries to figure out the kind of the qualities of the applicant. It's not so much the idea we're looking at because we expect the idea to change, or as you say, if somebody's coming with not a lot of experience, it's really about, does that applicant demonstrate kind of passion and moxie and an understanding of a audience or community that they aim to serve or be in service to? Do they understand an information problem or challenge that needs to be solved? Even if they don't necessarily come with journalism experience, like in the case of Annalise, she viscerally understood the impact that having this megachurch was having on people's lives in her community. And she was committed passionately to solving that challenge with news and reporting. That's what we're looking for, the applicant, more than the idea. And so what we'll do is figure out kind of like, here's a short list of people we think are going to be a great fit with the program with this cohort. That's not to say you won't be a great fit with a future cohort. And then we try and see if we need to do an interview to find out more. And that's basically it. And at the end of the day, what we're looking to do is build a really strong, cohesive cohort. So if somebody is not invited to be in the program, more often than not, it's just because at this moment for this cohort, it feels like there's, a kind of a stronger selection. So yeah, that's it. That's really what we look for. So we're just 1 minute past the hour. Just again, in terms of respecting all of your time, I want to just stop there. And what I have said I will do is I will answer the rest of the questions in a Google Doc and I will share those with you. Let me just pop up the office hours again. As I said, there are these times in April. Somebody just mentioned maybe there are all booked
There
already.
are no more times in April.
They're all booked already?
Well, I was trying to book in one and it said I was trying to be like reasonable and add more information, and while I did that,
Gone? Okay, well, I will open up more times as I can. So keep your eye on your email. If they're all booked, I will try to open a few more in April on another day. And I will email out the link today or tomorrow. And otherwise, I'll open up a lot of time in May because I'm more available in May. And so there'll be lots of time before the deadline, May 31st, to book in for office hours. And I always invite people, if they can't get in for an office hours, email me and I'll try and figure something out. So we'll get you in if you need to get in and talk about your idea. But yeah, so, again, just thank you all for your time and interest in the program. I hope I answered some questions. You have a better sense of what the program's about. I think Robbie's already put his email in the chat. I'll put my email in the chat. So you can always reach out to me. Obviously, if I get inundated with emails, it may take me a couple of days to respond, but I'll do my best. I get back to everybody eventually, I promise. And yeah, I mean, this, it's a unique opportunity. I really hope if you feel it's a fit that you'll apply. We'll have one more info session at the end of May. Office hours will happen all throughout May, and I will commit to getting your questions answered, as fast as I can. And yeah, thanks again for being here today. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'm happy to hang out for another couple of minutes. Robbie, do you want to hit the record button just so it stops recording, and then I can stick around for another 10 minutes. If anybody wants to ask a question live, that's fine.
Oh, Philip, that's great.